Hello everybody, this is Mithril Zenith, and I'm recording... I really enjoyed this game. I'm recording a bit of FTL Faster Than Light. This game, oh man, people say it's so difficult, and I'm inclined to believe them. That said, people also blame it for being, too random number generatory, and, like, frustrating about that. I don't know. It took me about 20 hours, but after about 20 hours... Sorry, music was a little loud. After about 20 hours, I realized, yeah, this game can randomly screw you over, and sometimes some things are determined by randomness, but really, depending on what ship you get, that can determine how much random luck you have to rely on. So, I figured, as a first opening video to FTL, why not overview all the ships and give my opinions on all of them. I have about 87 hours currently logged in there. I've unlocked all the ships, yes. The only ones I haven't officially won with, as you can see, are the Engi and the Slug, although I have gotten to Sector 8 with all of them. In fact, the Slug Type C, I got to Sector 8 on hard mode, which is insanity. I'm pretty well knowledge in this game, so I'd say still take what I say with a grain of salt. Everyone plays a little differently, but I think this might be solid advice. So without further ado, let's start the ship overview with the Kestrel. Okay, the Kestrel. The starting ship, the only one you have to begin with. Not bad, actually. It's not the best, but it's not the worst. I mean, what are the pluses we have? Well, first of all, we start with a Burst Laser Mark II and an Artemis. Pretty good weapons, a good balance. You have a 2 damage missile for 1, and 3 lasers for 2. Not bad. Start with 2 shields, 2 engines, 3 in weapons, and 1 in all the basic systems. Downsides? Only 3 crew members, and all of them are human. No augmentations to start out with, and no special rooms either, so no, like, crew teleporters or anything special like that. Oops. The Type B, we have the Red Tail, which... 2 shields, 2 engines, 4 weapons, all basic lasers, so the weapons themselves aren't that great, but starting with 4 and 4 weapons, you have some massive firepower. Crew selection is also really nice. 2 humans, a Zoltan, and a Mantis. I'm just going to look back here. Yeah. Nice ports for airlocks for deoxygenating the ship. As you can see from the Kestrel, you only have the 2 sides and the back, so fire, like in the weapons room, say, you have to pretty much put it out by hand, otherwise you have to drain half the ship to get to it. With this, you can pretty much get to almost any room. I think at any room, yeah, within like 2 or 3 jumps. The only ones that take 3 rooms are these 2, the sensors and I think the would-be teleporter. Maybe the teleporter's here. I don't remember which one's the teleporter. Anyway, pretty nice layout. Then you have the Type C, which is the Swallow. A little more stretched out horizontally. You start with a Lanius and 2 humans. Start with level 2 sensors and a clone bay instead of a med bay. Weapons, you have dual lasers, which are pretty nice, 2 shots for 1, and an ion stunner, which can be good, can be really great, but can also not be that great because it's only 1 ion damage for 10 seconds, which is worse than a normal ion burst. But with the 5-second stun, can add up pretty well, especially if you, say, set their ship on fire, have a breach, and then you stun that room, and then the crew suffocates or burns to death. It's going to be pretty fun. As for the layout with the air vents, still kind of the same problem as the Kestrel has. A little worse, actually, because everything's so close up here, and so far away from any air vent, you have to go through so many rooms to deoxygenate something up here. But with the cloning bay, it's not as bad, and still a solid ship. Overall, I'd say the Kestrel Cruiser A, B, and C. Not bad. None of them are pretty bad. A is a good starting point. C is a nice introduction to Cloning Bay and Lanius. I personally prefer the B, just because of the 4 weapons and the crew variety, but that's just me. I'd say all of them are pretty solid. Not the best in anything, but not the worst, definitely. Oh, speaking of the worst. Okay, next we have the Engi. The Engi ships are very weird. I don't know if it's Engi or Engi, if it's a soft G or a hard G, oh well. They're all very different from each other, too. First you have the Torus, which is pretty solid. It's Ion Blast Mark II, so 4 seconds. You can fire twice as fast as it takes the ion to go down. And with little reductions, even faster than that. So you can actually take out a full thing of shield, provided you keep hitting with a single Ion Blast Mark II. And then you have a combat drone to actually deal damage. It's pretty good. As for the layouts, yeah, airlocks, nothing nearby the shields. I mean, the shields, the engine, or the drones. Weapons. Airlock's not really in a great position. Med bay is right next to the piloting bay, piloting the captain's, the bridge, whatever it's called. So that's actually pretty nice, because like if you get injured, whatever, then you can like send it back, whatever. I don't remember where the crew teleporter is. I think it's one of these 3. I could be wrong. It might be like this or here, but I think it's one of these 3. I like this positioning, kind of, but getting people all the way from like the engine to here could be a pain. Then again, you have the Engi Medbot Dispersal, and this is the only one that has that. The only ship that starts out with this. It's probably one of the best augmentations in the game, provided you have a med bay. If you have a cloning bay, it's completely useless. As for downsides with the ship, well, you're relying on drones for your damage. You don't start with a crew teleporter, so you can't take out enemy crew with that. And your starting crew is 1 human and 2 Engi. Nice for repairing the ship, but if you get invaded, you have a hard time fighting them off. But speaking of bad ships, we have the Vortex here. Now, at first glance, this is pretty bad. Like, 2 shields, 1 engine, 1 crew member, no sensors, a drone reactor booster that maxed out on drones with 2 system repair and an anti-personnel, which doesn't even board their ship. It stays on board and fights, so it's... I don't know. I had to take this all the way to Sector 8 to unlock the Type C, and in that experience, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. Like, a Heavy Ion and Heavy Laser Mark 1 aren't the best weapons, but they're not terrible, and as long as you can keep the drones powered, they can repair the ship really well. Very little micromanaging goes on with this. Really, it's only the decisions of when to turn on your drones, and when and where to fire your weapons, and if you need to move your pilot out for any reason. Until you get more crew members, and then you can actually get going. But yeah, 2-person rooms on the weapons and the med bay. Yeah, it's not as bad as it looks, but really, when you're looking at ships, you're looking at 2 things: the start layout, the layout, and the start position. And though it does start with pretty decent weapon and drone, it's the crew, man. It's the crew. If you get invaded at all, ever, by more than 2 people, you are going to die, because the anti-personnel drone, good as it may be, can't stand up to more than 2 people shooting it. And then you have the Tetragon. 2 Engis and a Lanius, a dual laser and a beam drone, with the Defense Scrambler, an interesting augmentation choice to start out with. It's nice for, it would be better if you had missiles, so this pairs very well with, like, heavy missile launchers, like the whole missiles, like the breach missiles, because you prevent their defense drones from doing anything, so you can fire the missiles out and you don't have to worry about them getting shot down. As for systems, wow, this thing has a lot of starting systems. Starts with drones, like all Engi ships, and a clone bay instead of a med bay, and hacking. This thing is the drone master. Hacking and 2 points in drone bay. Downside, only 1 point in weapons, so it's going to take a little more. Still only 3 crew members. And look at this layout. What is this? Like, okay, all the Engi ships are weird, but this one... Let me check something. Yeah, okay, this is the only one that has an entry in the center. So it has decent, like, airlock coverage, but again, the weapon system and the engines, first of all, are on opposite sides, never a good sign. Second of all, they're so far away from any airlocks, it's going to take forever if you start a fire. Like, if you get an engine fire, you could normally, like, okay, move them out and just, like, let it open up, drain it out, and then move back. Not really so, because if you have an engine fire, it's going to take so long for the deoxygenation to happen, unless you move the Lanius back to, like, the engine or something. It's going to take so long that it's not even going to matter, and your engine's going to blow up before anything happens. Same thing with the shields and the weapons. Like, and also look at this. It doesn't matter, like, the actual distance, it's how many rooms it has to clear. And this many rooms, granted, it's really nice if you, like, say, upgrade your doors. You can just lock them down with the captain really easily. And if the enemy, for some reason, teleports into here, you can open up these airlocks, completely drain the oxygen out of here before they can really break through the doors, and then, so, at the very least, you're fighting, like, half-health enemies. But they rarely do that, because normally they hop right into the cloning bay and the shields and the weapons, or something like that. So this whole trap is meaningless. And, let's not forget, you have a 2-room cloning bay. If you switch for a med bay, it's a 2-slot med bay, which means only one person can be healed at a time, without, like, serious micro back and forth, moving in and out of the med bay. This ship was built with only a cloning bay in mind, no med bay. So do not switch to med bay if you're running the Tetragon. Overall, I don't really like any of the Engi ships very much. I'd say Tetragon is still decent, and the Defense Scrambler gives you some options. But I actually like the Type A. I like the Torus best, because of the Ion Blast Mark II is a really solid weapon. It's the best Ion, like, in my opinion, in the game. Engi Medbot Dispersal is awesome. It's fantastic. It's the best, one of the best augmentations, and it's the only ship that starts with it. And you have a combat drone to do damage. Yes, you're reliant on drones to do damage, and yes, your crew members can't really defend themselves very well. But it's still a decently solid start. Just watch how many drone parts you use up. Next we have the Osprey, a ship which a lot of people say is overpowered. I would tend to disagree, actually. Okay, let's look at the starts. 4 crew members, good mix, a human, Engi, Mantis, and Rockman, so you have both solid fighting force in the Mantis-Rockman combo, and you have solid ship defense, like ship repairing and piloting in the Engi and human. The layout of the ship is not that great. As you can see, like, airlocks only on the far ends. Yes, they're close to the weapons. It takes a while to get to engines. Just give up on trying to put out fires and the shields and the med bays by deoxygenating. It's not going to happen. Weapon starts, you have a Burst Laser Mark II, which is not bad. And then you have the Special Artillery Beam, which can be very good. But it takes up power. You can't control it. You can't, like, hold back. And you can't aim it. So it wildly varies. You could get a shot where you hit like 7 rooms and it's awesome, or you could have a shot where it hits 3 rooms and like starts from the middle somewhere and doesn't hit anything of importance. Very wildly varies. Too much variance for my taste. You can boost it to a 20-second cooldown, but still, for how unreliable as it is, it's basically effectively a pike beam that you can't control. That shoots a little slower, but isn't affected by shields. That's really what you have here. And then you have a Burst Laser Mark II, which is again not a bad start. Not a bad crew start, but no special, like, stations, no teleporter start, no cloaking, no drones, no hacking, no nothing. Still solid, but like no augmentations either. We can do better. Can we? Nisos, Type B. Dual lasers and a Lido. Ugh, the Lido sucks. It takes up a missile, and it's only 1 damage. It's rarely worth it. You'll start with 3 crew members, a Zoltan, a Slug, and a Human. Starting with the Slug is pretty nice, but still. This layout, what is it? I mean, okay, you have airlocks in the center, and then in these 2 sides, but nothing. The weapons and the shields, not only are they so far out from each other, they're so far out from anything, and it takes forever to deoxygenate to them anyway. People can easily get trapped in here, locked in, like if they hack this and then send like a boarding drone, like if the boss does that, or log in and like invade and then hack in. Yeah, these rooms are high liabilities. As for the start, dual lasers are pretty nice because they're 2 for 1, but ugh, the Lido just makes me sick. You do start with 2 points on the artillery beam though, which is pretty nice, but again, it can be a power sink, and if it gets hit, that goes way down. Oh ho ho, then you've Forgatity. However you pronounce that. 2 Zoltans, a Mantis, and a Human, so pretty solid start. You have a Mantis for boarding. Instead of artillery beam, you have artillery flak, which is the same cooldown, but basically fires as an advanced, a heavy flak gun on the cooldown instead of a pike beam. Doesn't pierce the shields, but solid flak can cover the entire ship, potentially. You do start with a teleporter, and emergency respirators, which I don't know why exactly, but they gave it to you anyway. Lot of good air vent locations. The very center is the important part, though. That's your artillery flak. That's the thing the ship is. That's the only reason why you'd use this ship, really. And it is so far out. It's 3 rooms from an airlock, so I guess it's not too bad. But it's so far from anything else that trying to repair it means sending people away, well away from where their stations are. Starts with a cloning bay, though. Starts with a teleporter, which is nice. A Mantis and a teleporter means you can invade pretty well. No weapons, though. You rely on the flak artillery. And because of that, yes, you have a cloning base, so you can potentially like send suicide attacks. But anything with a Zoltan shield, you are not getting through until like at least 2 shots from the flak artillery. Potentially 1, but realistically 2. No weapons means that, like, against an automated drone, again, you're reliant on this unless you want to send suicide parties, which only work somewhat, and you have to hope that they can actually, like, damage the room enough before they die, and only 1 good person there. 2 shields, 2 engines. I don't know. I've tried running hard mode with this ship on the request of a friend. Got decently far, like sector 4 or 5, but this ship is, let's just say it's not the best. Again, I don't really like any of these. Like, they're alright and they're fun to use, certainly, but they're not the best starting layouts. I'd say, if you're going for fun, if you're going for experimental, Forgatity is probably one of the best Type Cs for its unique nature. But if you're going for a solid all-around start, I'd say the Osprey. I like the layout of the Forgatity more, but I like the starting armament of the Osprey better. Again, my opinion. Ooh, next we have Zoltan ships. Maybe it's just because I like beam weapons, but I like the Zoltan ships. They all come with their weaknesses, though. So first we have the Type A, the Adjudicator. 1 airlock here, 1 airlock here. The engines, shields, and weapons are all lined up, which can be very nice and can be very bad. If a fire starts here, it's gonna be a nightmare trying to put it out. But if, like, someone's invading, you can easily stage a defense and not like have to worry about trying to run all across 3 points of the ship. And it's nice with Zoltan crew members because then you can easily, very quickly, like ship them over between rooms to help power whatever systems you may need. Medbay is on the opposite side of the ship. Sensors are on the other far opposite side of the ship. So the ship layout leaves some to be desired. As for the armaments, Halberd and Lido. Halberd can be nice, but it really works well with ions or lasers so you can reliably take down the shields. The Lido missile doesn't deal enough damage to take down shield generators past like Sector 1. So you're always going to be doing only partial damage with the Halberd, and especially if you're running on harder difficulties, you're not really going to be doing much. So I'd say for lower difficulties this is nice, but for higher difficulties, you need a better start than a Lido and a Halberd. Every one of them starts with a Zoltan shield, though, which is probably, again, one of the best augmentations in the game, up there with the Engi Medbot Dispersal, the Weapon Pre-Igniter, and, depending on your build, Zoltan Shield Piercing, and Drone, whatever it's called, the Drone Disruption. Those are really solid augmentations. It basically, you can't be invaded except by plot, like, because you can teleport to a thing, and if plot says you're invaded, you're invaded. Like, but enemy ships can't actively invade you until the Zoltan Shield is down. It blocks all missiles, lasers, beams, everything. Beams hit twice to the shield. Ion deals, I think, triple damage to it. But missiles, like, this thing is absolutely amazing when it comes to stopping missiles. 3 crew members, they're all Zoltan, so you're gonna have a hard time fighting off invaders if they do come in, which hopefully the Zoltan Shield should prevent most of that, but when you get plot invaded, it's hard. Medbay, again, is kind of an awkward spot. Layout, not really too keen on, but armaments, again, Lido's not great, but pretty solid overall. Noether. Again, how do you pronounce these things? Again, 3 Zoltan, a Zoltan shield, and 1 shield point, so it takes 100 to activate it. At least you don't have to buy it from a shop, but it takes 100 to activate your base shield. So you're going to be running on the Zoltan shield, and you're going to be relying on that. But 4 weapon control, 2 ion blasts, and a pike beam. This seems pretty bad. Like, at first it's like, oh, well, it's a 1 damage beam, why wouldn't I take the 2 damage beam? Well, because it fires twice as fast and has twice the range. 2 ion blasts allow you to have one pinging their shields while the other hits their weapons, or both on the shields to knock it down quickly. Kind of like, in total, like, if you alternate it, it can be like Mark II, just with 2 separate weapons. And the pike beam is pretty nice. As for layouts, I've run this ship so many times, and in my experience, these little side rooms, especially like the engine, oxygen here, and then the teleporter, which goes right here, those side rooms are difficult. Like, they're not too bad. They're pretty defensible from enemy crew members. But the door is on the far side. The oxygen is all the way over here, so you have to deoxygenate the path to the oxygen to get it. So, if a fire starts in the oxygen, it's going down. If a fire starts in the oxygen and the sensors, oh, yeah. So this ship, the main rooms are pretty well defended. The main bulk of it is pretty easy to stop fires in, but it's the engine, oxygen, sensor, door side that if fires start here, it's going to be a nightmare to take out. It's going to be a nightmare to solve that problem. Then you have the Serenkov. Sounds Russian. 4 crew members, again all Zoltan. Good shields, engines, weapons, and drones, and a backup battery, and a clone bay, and the Zoltan shield, and anti-ship beam, and a charge ion. Okay. There are 2 downsides to this ship. Well, kind of 3. First downside is The layout is alright. I mean, you have decent coverage here for airlocks, but the engines, the shields, and the cloning bay are all so far away from each other. Why? Ugh. Yeah, this makes it really hard to stop invaders and fires, especially if they invade over here and then kill your crew members because you have to respawn and walk all the way over. Having a cloning bay with Zoltans is nice though, because in Advanced Edition, when Zoltans die, they explode, dealing like 20 or 30 damage to whoever's right next to them. So you can kind of, if you get like a crew teleporter, send like, or even just in self-defense, you can kind of do a suicide bombing almost type build where you just like, okay, rely on the clone bay and just send in Zoltan to die and explode. But yeah, so downside, first one is the layout. Second one, like, I don't know, the weapons are pretty nice. Having the ion charger allows you to shoot in a burst. And for 2 power, its base charge time is a little faster than the ion burst Mark 1. So you can keep up a fairly consistent stream of ion. Like, just about enough to keep something disabled if you just auto-fire. But you're reliant on the beam drone for damage. Like, this is the same problem I had with the Engi. You're relying on a drone for damage. And this one can't pierce shields. This one, like, you need to coordinate with the ion to pierce shields, while the beam drone actually deals damage. Really solid base start, but that armament complication worries me a little bit. And then the third problem I have with it is something you can't see here, but is listed on the list. Not willing to spend the money on a decent reactor, instead relies on Zoltan crew and backup battery. What does that mean? That means that the reactor is basically at minimum. You will have like very little, if any, natural power to start with, and it will be more expensive to do the primary upgrading of the reactor. Overall, I like the Zoltan ships. I personally prefer the Type B, but the Type C is a close second. Both of these are pretty solid. The Type A, again, Leto missile, Leto halberd is just not good enough. I'd rather have even like a basic laser, because at least basic lasers don't get shot down by like defense drones. If you face something with 2 shields and a defense drone, you cannot hurt it at all, unless you get very, very lucky with the missiles. So again, Type B, Type C, close second. I like these ships. Crew starts can be a little tricky to actually defend your ships, though, so I like the Type C a little more for that, because it has the cloning bay, so you can effectively employ a suicide bombing crew strategy, instead of having to try to keep them all alive with a med bay. So, next ship, we have the Gila Monster. Oh, speaking of crew invasions. 3 Mantis and an Engi. Already, just by getting the ship, they teach you this is an awesome combination. Engi stay on the ship and repair, Mantis go out and kill everyone else, or defend the ship. As for this ship itself, the Type A is not that great. They all, I think, they all start with Mantis pheromones, boosting your crew's movement speed. Very nice, especially when you're trying to give the runaround to a non-Mantis enemy. Especially like trying to run around rocks, you can back and forth like across their ship and damage systems before they even get to you because you're just so fast. As for the layout, airlocks here, here, and here. You've got the main area and the engines covered, but shields, medbay, weapons, and oxygen are in complete opposite corners. The medbay is fairly close to the teleporter, which is nice, but still. And then the weapons you start with, a small bomb and a Mark 1 laser, a basic laser, the same thing on the red tail, and only 1 point in weapons, so you can only have 1 active at once. You can't break shields, you're entirely reliant on your Mantis crew to board and kill enemies, which it is effective at doing. But taking out automated drones is a nightmare, because you have to bomb their shields, and then shoot slowly, and hopefully you can destroy the ship before it gets its shields back online. Otherwise you have to switch, bomb the shields again, and repeat. A pretty solid ship aside from that, and really fun to use with the crew teleporter, but there may be better options. Let's check out the Type B, the Basilisk. Again, similar layout problems with the only airlocks being here. Oh, you have on the corners, so these areas are pretty nice, pretty easy to deoxygenate the main crew systems, but what have we here? Oxygen on one side, like the farthest corner possible, sensors on the other, farthest corner possible. You have a 4-room teleporter, which is amazing, by the way, but only 2 crew members to use it. You don't start with any weapons, you only start with a boarding drone and a defense drone. You only start with 1 engine, but you do start with 2 shields. 2 shields is awesome. But I like the Basilisk. It's fun to use, but you need more crew members, first of all. First priority, get more crew members. Second priority, get some weapons, because again, automated drones will be absolutely... If you run into an automated drone, you have, like, no chance of destroying it without losing at least some crew member. And if you walk onto a solar flare hazard, your ship is pretty much toast. Because if it hits the oxygen, if anything hits the oxygen, like if there's fire in the oxygen, you're done. You're just done if there's fire in the oxygen. There is no way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's no way to deoxygenate 5 rooms, the only way to get to it, and get people down to repair it, especially trying to repair oxygen with Mantis. If you can get some Engi, it's nice. If you can get some rocks, it's nice. If you can get some Lanius, that would be nice. So that's your first priority. Really risky ship to run. I think it's awesome and it's really fun and I love it. But again, really risky. Then you have the Theseus. A really weird layout. A Mantis, an Engi, and a Lanius. So, let's check the layout though first, because that's been our problems the last 2. Airlocks here, where it doesn't really matter. I don't know what these rooms fill into. I think I've like rarely run this. I don't remember which one could be like the hacking or the mind control or whatever. You know, a lot of big rooms here, so a lot of possible places here and here for big battles on your ship. Which, with a Mantis ship, you're built on invading, you want a bigger battle station so you can have 4 people just line up and take them out. Start with a cloning bay and 4-room teleporter. 4-room teleporter for 3 starting crew. Again, not great, but hey. As for your weapons, lockdown bombs and stun bombs can be amazing in invading. Can't do a thing to anything with a Zoltan shield. If you run into a Zoltan shield, you're pretty much donezo with the Theseus. Granted, same problem with the Basilisk. You're pretty much done if you run into a Zoltan shield. At the very least, you have cloning bay, so if you run into an automated drone, you can suicide in, like a Mantis or a Lanius crew member, to take out the ship and eventually damage it by hand enough that it explodes. So, final results. The Basilisk and the Theseus I like pretty well. The Gila monster is a lot more consistent, yes, but only a 2-room teleporter, so not quite as fun, and still suffers from the problem of having everything so far away from itself. So far away, ugh. Mantis pheromones help, don't get me wrong, they really help. But if you're gonna run a Mantis ship, you're gonna be running massive boarding, you're gonna want to be running massive boarding parties, and if you want to be running massive boarding parties, take a 4-room teleporter. The Basilisk and the Theseus are both really solid. Basilisk starts with 4 more shields, but the Theseus starts with a cloning bay. It's really up to you. Oh wait, another thing I didn't mention though. The Basilisk Medbay right next to teleporter. Thank goodness. This makes having a medbay instead of a cloning bay competitively viable, because as soon as you teleport back, you can instantly heal up, and then send them right back in as soon as the teleporter's ready. It's awesome. I love the Basilisk for that alone. 4-room teleporter, 2 bars of starting shields, and the med bay right next door. If only it had 1 weapon, or more than 2 crew members. Really risky ships to run, but very fun, very enjoyable, personally. Next you have the slugs. Oh, the slugs. The specialists and everything. None of them have any sensors, so you're going to be relying on your slug crew members. If you have a fire in the ship, you have to work pretty hard to figure out where the fire is. You start with solid doors, though, so you can pretty easily prevent the fire from spreading too much and effectively lock it down. It's pretty easy to defend as well, because you can use those doors to your advantage, suffocate out people, so at the very least, by the time they get to where your crew members are, they'll be weakened and you'll be able to pick them off. As for the slugs themselves, they're basically humans, but with a unique ability that basically acts as there's a new augment that does the same thing. You see, red outlines of whatever the crew is on the enemy ship. Too bad you can't do that on your own ship, but I don't know. Starting layout, an anti-bio beam, a breach bomb, and dual lasers. Pretty well rounded. You have the dual lasers to deal ship combat damage, you have the breach bomb to cause breaches, crew damage, or just break important parts of enemy ships, deoxygenation, and you have the anti-bio beam, which is going to be your main method of dealing with enemies, actually. Because the only, ship damage weapon you have is a single dual laser, yeah, you can shoot down some ships with it. The anti-bio beam deals 60 crew damage, and does pretty fast and lines up well. It's fun to use to cut up their crew with anti-bio beam. You don't need sensors when you have slugs to know exactly where they are. It would be nice to know how injured the various crew members are, but hey, you can't have everything you want. Pretty solid. Man of War gets a pretty decent seal of approval, I'd say. Stormwalker. This one is weird. No med bay or cloning bay, but you have a crew teleporter. Instead, you have an Artemis and heal bombs. Now, only having missiles as your weapons is risky in the first place. Only having 1 missile that can actually deal damage is again risky. Only having 3 crew members, all slugs, in a ship designed to invade enemies where your only method of healing is the heal burst is very risky. Do you get the point? This ship is like an accident waiting to happen. Miss 1 heal burst, crew teleporter a little too slow, get invaded and have your weapons shut down. A lot of things can go wrong, a lot of potential to go wrong. Oh, by the way, I haven't talked about the slug repair gel, which all of these have, which again, up in the running for probably best augmentation, instantly repairs any breaches. Really nice. So, what's the good side about it? Looking at the layout, I mean, it's not terrible. Everything is within 3 or 4 steps. Most things are from 3, except for these things. From an airlock, so that's pretty nice. Start with 3 crew members, and they're all slugs, so while you may not have specialist combat variety or extra repairing of the Engi, at least you have potential. Healing burst isn't too bad, actually. It instantly heals your crew, but doesn't heal any enemies, so you can keep up an assault once you send it. It's very different. All these slug ships are completely different playstyles. Again, it can be really good, it can be really fun, but it's You just have to watch out, because, again, it's an accident waiting to happen. And then you have the only ship which I've gotten the farthest in. I actually got to stage 2 of the boss in hard mode with this ship on one run. Like, after running it 10 different times, I finally got there, and that's the farthest I've ever gotten on hard mode. The Areolamax, whatever it's called. Look at the layout, pretty solid. I mean, ish. Vents in the back here. One up top, but nothing on the bottom. So up top, 1, 2, 3. This is the hardest place to deoxygenate. But starting with a chain laser 2, which starts out a little slower than the normal dual laser or burst laser 1. Well, a fair bit slower. But if you can keep it powered, it'll keep its charge. So it's 7 seconds for 2 shots is not bad. Starting with mind control and hacking and a cloning bay, this is the ultimate specialist ship. I love how it's consolidated in the center, but again, it's kind of risky having these weapons out here in the middle of nowhere. 3 slugs? I don't know. It's a really good, well-rounded ship, but you have to make use of your special weapons to their fullest ability. You have to really make use of the mind control and the hacking, otherwise the ship just isn't as good. Its systems are alright, but nothing to shine about. If you like specialists, this is pretty much your ship. If you don't, you might want to look elsewhere. I have a hard enough time giving a grade of which ones I like the best from the A, B, and C, like with the other ships, because they all play out entirely different from one another. They're all slugs, yes, but the main strategy is completely different. This one is a lot more focused on destroying their ship, while these two are focused on destroying their crew. This one sends invading parties, this one uses an anti-bio beam. They're all really fun to use, but they're so different from other ships, you have to know what you're doing to pilot them effectively. Next we have the Rock, the Bulwark, the Shivan, and the Tektite. All solid ships, but all with some pretty notable flaws. All have rock plating, which, if you played the game, you've probably faced rock ships that just seem to resist everything you do. 15% chance to negate incoming hull damage. It never seems to work for me, but it always seems to work for the enemies when they need it. So, whatever. Let's start with the Bulwark. 2 pretty good missiles, a Hull missile and Artemis missile. But that's it. That's your only offense is missiles. You start out with a stock of 25 or something, so it's pretty solid. But unless you get a laser drop, you're eventually going to run out of missiles. No crew teleporter, though you do start with 3 rock crew members, which is a solid fighting force. If you get invaded, you can pretty much hold it off. If there are any fires start, you can sap them with your rocks, because it doesn't matter, really. The only airlocks are in the very middle here, and it's not too far away from anything important. A solid start, if you can get over the fact that your only weapons are missiles. Next you have the Shivan. Heavy Pierce 1, a unique weapon. It'll pierce 1 laser, but acts as a heavy laser that costs 2 power. So that extra power is effectively what you get for that pierce. And a firebomb, so you can start fires in the enemy ship. When combined with a rock boarding party, it can be very good. 4 rock crew members, sorry, I have hiccups right now. Really solid fighting force. I only wish they started you with a crew teleporter, but you can't have everything. What's the downside to the ship? Well, aside from the fact that if anything has 2 shields, you can't break it with the starting stuff. No airlocks. Nothing. Nada, zip, zilch. Yes, you have crew members. 4 rock crew members, which are really good at taking out fires. But hey, if enough fire starts, if it builds up to a big enough level, you can't contain it with only 4 crew members. You have to be, I don't know. This is huge on the crew micromanagement to take out fires. But aside from that, it's a really solid ship, and I actually like it pretty well. See, I've actually won, only on easy, but I actually found the Crystal Cruiser with this ship after about 50 runs. So I played this enough to know how it goes, and it's pretty solid, but again, no airlocks, so you're gonna have to watch out for that. Not even any doors, so you can't bar any progress. You can't manually open or close doors. It's pretty much you have to manage the crew, and that's about it. Then you have the Tektite. 2 rocks and a crystal. The only non-crystal cruiser to start with a crystal member. You have Heavy Crystal Mark 1, which is effectively the Heavy Pierce, but it only costs 1 energy instead of 2. It's a little slower on the charge time, and has a stun chance instead of a fire chance. Your backup weapon? Swarm Missiles. Up to 3 missiles for a single shot. Each only deals 1 damage, but hey, you can fire 3 missiles for 1, and only takes 2 power. Not a bad charge time either. I like it. It's one of the few missile launchers that I actually use on a pretty regular basis, when I can get it. It's the same thing as if you ever reached the boss ship. The boss has effectively one of these, a triple missile launcher. Now next we have, okay, what's the layout like? Tons of airlocks. Amazing, incredible, like, they're double up on these rooms. I don't know why. So all the center rooms, though, the whole center, has easy airlock access. Start with the cloning bay. Solid start. This is a really good ship. Really solid. Again, all these rock ships are rock solid. There's nothing too much I'd complain about with them. So, all in all, I'd say they're all really good decisions, really good starting choices. I don't like the Bulwark so much because, again, you're limited to only missiles as your firepower. B, I like the extra crew member, but you have to watch out for no airlocks. And C, I don't know, there's not much I could complain about with C. So many small rooms, so there's not really much place for a big fight, aside from the very back. But, hey, pretty set up, pretty solid. I like them all. Oh, the Stealth Cruiser. Highest variance ship ever. You will either love this ship or hate it. From the Type A, we get a basic, look at what it has. All of them have long-range scanners, but Type A also has titanium casing. 15% chance that system damage will be negated. Kind of the counterpart to the rock plating, where 15% damage for 15% chance that ship damage will be negated. 15% chance that 15% chance that system damage will be negated. Why can't I speak? That sentence isn't too hard. Again, like the Kestrel, you only start with 3 humans, but you start with 4 engines and a cloaking device. The downside? What's missing? Shields. No shields. Anything with a drone will kill you. Okay, weapons I can see. You can cloak right after the weapon fires to boost your dodge chance by 60, which plus your shields means you're rarely getting hit, if ever. Boosted dodge chance is nice. So you wait until they fire, you cloak when they fire, and then you come back, and that's when your weapons fire back and destroy their weapons, and hopefully they stay destroyed long enough so you can just cut it through. Mini beam and dual lasers are 2 weapons I don't think you can find in shops. Really nice, 2 for 1 on the laser, and a 1 power beam, really short, but a low charge time, and just long enough to cut through a corner like this to deal 3 damage. But again, you'll either love it or hate it, because starting with the cloak is nice. Long-range scanners are also nice, because you can avoid system hazards. Because if you walk into an asteroid field, you're dead. But no shields. DASR-12. Again, no shields. Only 2 engines instead of the 4 that we got. But we start with a massive glaive beam and a Zoltan instead of a human, so hey, trade-offs. A level 2 cloaking means that pretty much your strategy is similar to the last one, but you can cloak for twice as long. You cloak for 10 seconds, which hopefully gives you that extra bit of time you need, so you only have to avoid one volley instead of two, so then the glaive beam can chop through their entire ship in one blast. Even if they have two shields, you can start in their shield room and move through to deal some pretty significant damage. It's fun, but again, like, if you can't get shields pretty quickly, you're gonna have a lot of losses in Sector 1 with this ship. You're gonna have a lot of serious damage. If they even breathe on your weapon system, it's dead. Like, you are dead in the water because it takes all 4 power to charge your weapon. If you even get down to 3, if they hit you with a missile, if they have a drone, if they have anything, you are dead. Really risky. But starting with a glaive beam is awesome, so it can pay off really well. And then you have the Type C, which I am confused why. I don't even know. Charge laser and mini beam. Charge laser in total fires a little slower than the dual laser, but hey, it's 11 seconds for 2 instead of 10, but you can choose to fire only a single shot instead, and it's still only 1 power. Really good. Mini beam, again, 1 power beam, quickly deal 3 damage. Really solid. No shields. No cloaking bay. You have a shield overcharger plus drone, which every few seconds will give you 1 layer of Zoltan super shield. 1 layer. And you don't start with it. And then you have an anti-drone. So, at the very least, if you're being attacked by combat drones, you can delay them with the anti-combat drone. So, that's at least one of the weaknesses out of the way. Oh, I haven't even talked about layout here. Like, okay, engines so far away from events. Other than that's pretty good. Weapons so far away from event. The only vents are in the back next to the engines, so a little risky there. And then this one, which has a little better vent coverage, especially with the little openings back here, but meh. Okay, if you're going to run a stealth ship, run the stealth ship, not this one. But I don't know, I haven't played it too much because I don't like the look of it. I'd hate relying on a drone because one random shot, you have a random chance of having the drone get shot, and if the drone gets destroyed, you're dead in the water. You have no defense. Your only defense is hoping that you damage their systems enough that they can't shoot at you. A little bit better crew start with a rock and a slug, so you can see them without... Oh yeah, that's another thing, you don't have sensors. You have a slug and you have long-range scanners, but you don't have actual ship sensors. Why? I don't know, they just decided not to put it in. This is, again, a very weird ship. A lot of the Type Cs are weird, but this one makes the least sense to me. This one and the Frigidity are quite weird. Could be really fun to play, I just don't feel the need to play it because I'm one of those people that hates the stealth ship, because I always fight people with beam weapons and drones when I'm trying to use the stealth ship. And it's horrible against beam weapons. If anything has a beam, you are screwed. That's my thoughts on the stealth ship. Let's go. 2 ships left. Let's do the Crystal first. No, let's do the Lanius, because at least you can unlock this fairly normally. 2 Lanius and a human. A layout where pretty much everything can get easy vent coverage. But why would you need vent coverage when you're going to have them open anyway, because your Lanius crew doesn't need oxygen? And you have emergency respirators for anyone else who needs to quickly travel through the deoxygenated rooms. Pretty solid. Start with hacking and clone bay. Pretty solid. Start with chain laser and an ion stunner. Pretty solid. Again, what more can I say? This is kind of like the rock ships. There's nothing I really dislike, even though there's nothing that I outstandingly love about the Lanius ship, there's nothing I really dislike. I'd say it's pretty fun, pretty cool. And then you have the Shrike, which drops its sensors for a crew teleporter. And drops its weapons, but at least you have an advanced flak that you can run on 1 power. That's faster than a normal flak, requires half the power, and still fires 3 shots per charge. You can get a lot of damage with a single flak gun. I once had enough flak for like, okay, it was this, 2 Mark 1s, and then a Mark 3. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I had 8 power, all in flak, and it was glorious. It was fun as whatever. You don't start with hacking, but you start with mind control. Really odd layout, but a cloning bay right next to teleporter, so you can keep up a constant stream of invaders. An Engi to help repair, and 2 Lanius. I like it. I like it a lot. It's pretty fun. Really weak on all the base systems, so watch out for that. But the layout's pretty solid. Having enough Lanius means you don't really have to worry about fire. You have 2 rooms that are basically dedicated airlocks here. What more can you ask for? Pretty solid, pretty fun. Again, you have to rely on your specialist options, the advanced edition options, the cloning bay, and the mind control, or the hacking. I say the Kuros is a little bit more consistent, but the Shrike, starting with a crew teleporter, is pretty fun as well. And last, but certainly not least, you have the Crystal Cruiser. What is this massive behemoth of a ship? Airlock, airlock, airlock. Nothing that's not getting covered fairly well. I mean, they're all like 3 rooms away, so it might take a little bit, but not too bad. Start with the Crystal Burst 1 and Heavy Crystal 1. Heavy Crystal 1, same thing as the Tektite. Crystal Burst, 2 energy. It's basically 1 damage, 2 shot. It's basically like a burst laser that pierces 1 and has a stun chance. 2 Crystal Crew members, which are amazing both for defense and for offense because of their lockdown ability, their higher health, and their reduced suffocation damage. And then 2 humans. Crystal Vengeance, which, if you take damage, 10% chance you fire off a shard and destroy and hit your enemy ship with it. It's effectively 1 shard, akin to a Crystal Burst Mark 1, 1 hit of that. It's 1 damage, 1 shield piercing. Not that great, very inconsistent, but can be fun. Pretty solid all around. Again, your Crystal Crew members are a little slower, so it takes them forever to walk the distance from one corner of the ship to another. The only thing that I don't like about the ship, then, is its immense size. Just the sheer size of the ship is really difficult to try to deal with. But then you have the Carnelian. Airlocks are here, here, and here, and here. So again, pretty good coverage. But again, the longest walk ever for 3 Crystal Men if you want to repair the cloaking bay. It is the farthest thing out from anything ever, as well as the main room, the bridge, the piloting center. And you start with no weapons. The good news is, though, 4-room teleporter right next to the med bay. Really, really nice. Really solid. You can just send everyone on a boarding party, turn on the cloak whenever you need to dodge something, because that's 60 evasion even if you're not piloting. Even if you don't have any movement or base evasion whatsoever, at least you have that 60% chance from cloaking. And with 3 Crystal Crew members, you can tear up their crew insanely. Warp into a room, lock it down before anyone gets in there, break the system. Or warp into a room, lock it down with only one person in there, kill them, even if they have a medbay they can't escape. Lockdown is so useful. As such, both of these are, again, fairly solid, but if you're gonna use the Crystal crew to its best potential in crew invasion and lockdown, use the Carnelian. If you want just a standard ship with a crystal flare, use the Bravais. Bravais. However you pronounce that. And that's really all the ships. That's all of them. Personal favorites? I like the Slug Type C. I like the Zoltan Type B and C. I like pretty much all the Rock Cruisers as just solid ships. There's nothing too extraordinary about them, but I like them. They're all pretty solid. And then I like the Lanius ships. And then I also like the Crystal Cruiser Type B and the Mantis Type B and C for just the fun of sending massive boarding parties. Really, there's not really a wrong answer when it comes to which ship you should play. It all depends, though, on what you want to do and what you're willing to give up at the start. I've been Mithril Zenith, and this has been a look at the FTL Hangar. Wow, this has been a long video. Well, I hope that's informative, and I'll see you guys next time. Mithril Zenith, signing out.